Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And ladies and gentlemen, my goodness, you would never think, Jamie, that there would be this much news at the end of the year. Now, granted, we do have a big show happening at the end of the week. Of course, Jeff Keighley's Game Awards 2025. I'm going to be watching it. I know that Mav and several other of our brethren are going to be covering it. Me personally, I just want to enjoy it as a normie, so I'm just going to watch it, take my notes as I always do, and of course, Friday morning, we'll be reacting to it. It's going to be the big Breakfast with Boom reaction panel for Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, and we'll be, talking about the snubs and who won and the big surprises and did Xbox show up and show out? But before we actually get there, Jamie, we have a show that has three pretty big topics, and one comes the way of Jason Ronald of Xbox, who was interviewed by the BBC yesterday, and we got a glimpse or kind of a peek behind the curtain of what they will be doing for next year's celebratory 25th anniversary of the Xbox platform. But Jamie, how you feeling, brother? Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm good. Been doing some Christmas shopping, getting through life, playing some Silent Hill 2, trying to survive that because that's been a journey. Yeah, good. I'm excited about this time of year. I'm one of those people that absolutely loves Christmas. I love the decorations.
Yeah.
I love everything about Christmas. And then we have the Game Awards this week, which is going to be, let's be honest, we're going to be watching a 3-hour show for a bunch of trailers. But hey, I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Yeah, well, listen, but we're still waiting for Umbra to get here, and obviously he should be here momentarily. But look, man, talk about gaming. Now, you and I are playing the same game. We're not, comparing notes, but you're playing Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'm playing Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'm also playing Marvel Cosmic Invasion. I'm also playing Call of Duty Black Ops 7. So I'm kind of in it a little bit. I bought Metroid 4. I've only played it about an hour. I'm very much enjoying it. I know a lot of people give it, giving it the business because, of the whole music behind the amiibo thing. And I get all of it. Nintendo just does really crummy things, but I'm enjoying it. I got to really sit down and put like a nice 4-hour block into it. But again, listen, folks, I know that you're right here with me and Jamie. There are too many games. Again, not real world problems, but there are too many games. But Jamie, I really want you to tell the story of how you are experiencing Silent Hill, because I love horror games, but I don't remember it being this horrifying. Like, there are certain instances where you'll like, and it's specific, like, a shadow will move and you'll see one of the things that has legs for arms and its body. It's really weird. And they kind of peek out at the corner and they go away. And you're like, oh my God. It's almost like the mannequin situation from Condemned Criminal Origins. It gives you that kind of punch to the stomach. You're like, oh, what's happening? But you told a pretty hilarious story about your experience so far. Why we wait for Umbra to talk about it, bro?
Just, for people that don't know, I am admittedly a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games. I like a bunch of horror games, but that doesn't stop the fact that I can find them absolutely terrifying, right? So like Silent Hill 2, very early on when you're walking around in the mist, there's these enemies walking around and they kind of like these like people that in these like skin sacks. They look weird. And
Disgusting.
There's these kind that actually just like these slide around on the floor, right? And even though it's 2025 and I've never seen this in a game before, one of them slid underneath a car, and I thought, wow, like that isn't something you really see in horror games. Like, cars are normally things out there in the wild. Nothing really happens with them. There's no interactivity and stuff. And you mentioned mannequins. There's things in this game that stand next to mannequins that look like mannequins, and it has that Condemned thing going for it. But it's phenomenal. I'm finding this game absolutely terrifying. I've been posting my experience basically every day on Twitter, and Every time I think I've beaten a really hard part and I'm going to get to an area that's somewhat nicer, the game gets worse. First you're in an apartment block and it looks pretty scary. It's very quiet. It's very damp. It's very eerie. And then you go somewhere that's worse, and then somewhere worse, and then worse. And then my heart feels like it's going to stop. Right? I can't stand it. I love the game. Like, I think it's one of the best games. Honestly, I mentioned this last week, but I'll say it again. I think Silent Hill 2 might actually be one of the best games ever made.
Okay.
The remake, because just everything about it, from gameplay, visuals, performance, like the music, and I haven't played the original in 20 years, so like I don't really have much to compare it to, but just there's something about it that screams like, hey, you live in a world where we get this AAA slop that we call slop for a reason, and then this game exists, and it's like there's no bugs at all. The performance, right? I typically, if a game comes out and it has a quality mode, and if I think the quality mode looks significantly better, I'll take the hit. I'll play it at 30
Me too.
seconds, because honestly, after about 2 minutes, my eyes will adjust and I'll just enjoy the game. Right? I will always prefer 60. However, if it looks better, I'll just play it at 30. But with this, it looks amazing still at 60. So I'm playing it at performance mode. It's possibly one of the best looking games ever made, in my opinion. But just everything that happens in this game scares the living hell out of me. And there's this thing this game does, which I think that some horror games do really well, and this does it exceedingly well, is that you could be looking for ammo, health packs, and you'll find these like drawers which you can open, or cupboards. And a lot of them are empty, right?
Yes, a lot of them are empty. More than half, I would even dare say. Yeah.
More than half. And it's just a good game. Every time I walk around a corner, something jumps out. I nearly fall out of my seat. That's happened more than once. I wish I could say it was a lot less. But what a game! Just what a game! It's just great. And the funny thing is, this is Bloober Team. They are a horror game studio, right? They know what they're doing, and they have a great framework for Silent Hill 2. Apparently doing the first game, but just there's lots of things in here that I think people like quality of life improvements, right? So there's people that do not like puzzles in horror games. There's an easy difficulty for the puzzles in this game, right? So rather than having to run around and collect, let's say, 8 pieces of a puzzle, you have to collect 4. Right?
Yes. Yep.
Maybe more obvious, stuff like that. Like puzzles kind of take way less time. And I think that's really cool. There are a lot of horror games that do this now, but it's just a really bloody good game. And the fact that it launched at £27 in the UK, it's incredible.
Crazy.
But honestly, I think that if people are looking for just a really high quality game that's fun, this is something people have to pick up. And while it's this price, it's a ridiculous price. And if people have never played it before, they have to get it. If people don't like horror games that much, I'd say that people should pick it up, because it's really easy to get into. The puzzles aren't overly complicated. I'd say the difficulty is fair. So, what can I say? If people are like me, even if they're a scaredy cat with horror games, I highly recommend it. I'm going to be done with it by the end of the week, I'm guessing. But my God, I will say this. I would probably play this and try and get every single ending, because I think there's 6 or 7 endings for Silent Hill 2. Because it just has so much replayability. And I did the bad thing where I got X amount through the game, and I discovered that there's an achievement for getting through the entire game using only melee weapons, right?
Oh.
So I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I could try and finish the rest of the game without using any of my ammo. So if people have been seeing my clips, they say that I'm using just the pipe to hit enemies. That's why. So I've made the game harder for myself. And then when you get New Game Plus, you get a chainsaw. So I should have done it that way.
I didn't know. I did not know that you get a chainsaw, because I like you. I think like right now I have 87 rounds of handgun ammo. Like, I use it sparingly. The ones that I use it against are the ones that throw up on you. Like there are these meat bags is the best way I can describe it, that are just slimy and gooey looking, and they're disgusting. So what winds up happening is if you hit them with your, with the with the 2x4 with the nails, or the pipe, then they explode acid all over the place. So what I
Yeah.
do is you pop them once with a round, they fall over and they explode. So that's the only actually time I've been using the
Yeah.
handgun.
I'll actually tell people there's this really cool health tip, and it's a thing they've put in the game intentionally. If you save the game and exit to the menu and then reload your save, you actually gain 50% of your health back.
Oh,
So
that's a
rather than
good tip.
needing
I didn't
you,
even know that.
yeah, so rather than needing to use 2 health drinks, you'll only need to use 1. So I've abused the living hell out of that
As you
that
should.
system. But like as someone that's trying to go through melee only, I've got about 647 handgun rounds.
Jesus. Wow.
I've got
Moly.
87 shotgun rounds, and I think around 41 hunting rifle rounds. So like I could make the rest of the game for myself a breeze. I could play it like Doom if I wanted to. But I want that 100G achievement. I'm going to get it. But other than that, it's phenomenal. People need to play it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, look, there is a lot of news to get into, and you know what? Let's get into the Tim Cook news. This got you very excited. Now, okay, so folks, if you're not sure what I am talking about. So I said Tim Cook, Tim Cain. Now, Tim Cain, if the name does not ring a bell, is one of the founders of the Fallout series. He is the creator of Fallout. He has been retired. And, you know, Jamie, you and I have talked about this probably to nauseum, to the point of nauseum, if I'm being fair. But I'm a huge Fallout fan. I love Fallout. I love Bethesda. I love what Todd Howard continues to bring to the series. But if I'm being fair, Fallout 76 was not, I'm not the audience type for that. Like I said, I was invited a couple of months ago to go to the Fallout 76 thing, which was awesome. Got a chance to meet with the project leads. It was great to talk with them. But even with the new content, it's not the Fallout that I am looking for. I know for a lot of people, it's, you can play it like a single player game and it's great, but that's not the Fallout that I want to play. What I am looking for is a narrative focused single player game in the way that Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout New Vegas. Those are the types of experiences that I am personally looking forward to, right? And that got exacerbated last year when I sat with Mrs. Boom and we watched the Fallout series. And Jamie, you've talked about this many times before, where in your region, there were record sales of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 right after the series, which blew up on Amazon. And season 2 is right around the corner, right? It's in a couple of weeks. We've seen a preview of it. It looks to be even better than the original. And of course, they are going to New Vegas, which is absolutely insane. So I got to be honest with you. Like, if I were to give some criticism, which I think is completely valid for both Microsoft, well, all three, Microsoft, Xbox, and more specifically Bethesda, is that they don't have anything ready to go with the hype of this TV series. I actually think that they were not looking further or too far down the path, and I think that ultimately is a failure of leadership. Like, I'm not trying to make this into a negative commentary, but I'm just being honest. As a gamer, I understand that we have so many games to play, we don't have enough time in the day to play them. But my criticism towards Bethesda more specifically is that you should have guessed, or at least had your feelers out there, that would have had a game ready to go, and they don't. Now, of course, there's always the chance that the rumored Fallout 3 remake could be something that's announced at the Game Awards and shadow drop, right? Like that I've been talking about that for weeks. But my other criticism is that right now the way Bethesda works is they are taking longer and longer to have these games come out. And I'm talking and listen, this is not because they're lazy devs, folks. I don't want to hear any of that. They literally have too much on their plate. They have 3 ginormous franchises, and most of those franchises have MMOs that they have to consistently add content to. So, of course, there's ESO and there's the Elder Scrolls. Now, we know that they're full on, it's a full court press for Elder Scrolls 6. But Todd Howard said that that's not for a couple of more years. Now, when he says couple, I don't think he means 2. Now, I would love to believe that that could be a launch game, Jamie, for the series, whatever the next console, the Xbox Fusion in 2027. That would be a killer launch title, right? But you and I, and of course, Umbra have talked about this, and I'm sure I probably have made mention on this on other podcasts. If they follow the standard 5 to 6 years per game, right? And we just look at Starfield releasing in 2023. We know that they're working on new content. We know that they're working on a PlayStation 5 version. So Bethesda, besides working on both Fallout 76 and ESO content, they also have to contend with new DLC for Starfield. They have to still contend with bringing us Elder Scrolls 6. And somewhere in there, they have to figure out a way to get Fallout 5, which is, it seems like it's an impossible task. Well, this new information that we have in front of us is pretty rad. And I know it got you super stoked. So Wario64 posted this. You shared it. Actually, I shared it in the DM, and of course, you went crazy over it. And this is what Wario had to say the other day. He posted this, folks. Fallout creator Tim Cain has rejoined Xbox's Obsidian Entertainment as a full-time employee. Now, he has not joined Bethesda, folks. He has joined Obsidian. Now, why I brought up the whole Bethesda thing is because this is where I think, and he says, you know what? Before I give you my thoughts, folks, let me read to you the quote literally from Tim Cain himself. He says this: I can't talk about the project that I'm working on at Obsidian just because it's covered by NDA. Don't bother guessing. You're not going to guess right. I would probably say that I'm a lot less retired now. Okay. He's the creator of Fallout, ladies and gentlemen. And no, he did not join Bethesda. He has rejoined Obsidian. Now, the reason why I did the whole Bethesda spiel is, and there's a point to it. And apologies for being long-winded, but Jamie, I want to drop the microphone to you in a second. So, if Bethesda is working on potentially a DLC package for Starfield, they're full on working on the Elder Scrolls 6. Where the hell does that leave Fallout 5? That's the big question, because look, folks, again, I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of it, but let's just do the Bethesda math. Let's just say for shits and giggles that they follow the 5-year plan. Let's try and lowball it. 5 years. So 5 years from Starfield in 23 gets the Elder Scrolls 6 for 2028. So they missed the launch of the new Xbox Fusion, and they release it a year later in 28. Okay, fine, right? You want the game to come out and be just as polished as Starfield was. Starfield was probably the best ever released Bethesda game, right? And if they follow the same 5-year plan, brother, that gets Fallout 5 to 2033. Bro, I'm going to be 63 years old when Fallout 5 comes out. Like, to me, I'm sorry. That's just not good enough. Again, folks, I know there's going to be somebody in the chat like, "Oh, look at this entitled gamer. What is he talking about?" But I'm just being honest. So then now we focus ourselves on the big news. The big news is that Tim Cain, who is the founder of the series, has come back. And look, he can say what he wants. Of course, he's going to be cool. He can't break any NDAs. I mean, but at the same time, Jamie Moran, is it safe to maybe think that they might be working on something Fallout related? What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, unfortunately, games take forever to make. You look at Grand Theft Auto and you think, wow, well, 6 comes out next year.
Yep.
When does 7 come out?
Yeah, dude, good luck with that. But 5 came out in 2013, so there you go.
So 2040, right? That sounds like some Blade Runner type of year, right? Fun fact: this year is set after Blade Runner. So when it comes to Fallout, when the TV show of season 1 came out, Fallout 3, Fallout 4 specifically, topped the charts across Europe and the UK. At that point, it was a 9-year-old game. And then you had Fallout 76, which was number 2 in the charts, which was, once deemed a failure. And you look at how big that was for Fallout, right? Like we've all seen it before. We've all heard it. Like apparently that made heads roll at Microsoft, right? Like what the hell? Like this TV show made them millions upon tens and tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars, just because a TV show exists of an existing property where they have this 9-year-old game out in the wild, right? And you look at their properties and you look at like Elder Scrolls and Fallout, we don't get them often. We really don't,
Yes.
because they're big games. Like a Fallout and Elder Scrolls game, and even Starfield, they are these massively intricate video games. Like most games where you drop an item, it will just disappear eventually. You drop something in a random cave in an Elder Scrolls or Fallout game, that thing's probably still going to be there 100 hours later. Right? Everything about those games is so intricate. So I completely understand why they take that much time. But like, if you look at this from a company perspective, like you have to want to get Fallout content and Elder Scrolls content out more often. Like from a Gamescom, like a bunch of developers were talking about how we need to get games out more often, right? Because this whole like 5, 6, 7 year dev time for these games, it's not sustainable. It really isn't. And then when you have these huge IPs such as Fallout and Elder Scrolls, like, yeah, it makes sense that you get one game once in a blue moon, because it's a big game, takes a long time to make. But like realistically, we haven't had a new Elder Scrolls game since 2011, right? It's now 2025. Dude. It's probably going to be 2027 at the minimum when we get the next one, right? So like realistically, and if they are making a new Fallout game, that studio, it is going to be 2032. I've been saying for the longest time it's going to be 2032, 2023. 33.
Yep.
But I think Microsoft, everyone at Bethesda, they have to realize, and they probably have realized, they need to make some sort of Fallout content now, right? Maybe it could be spin-offs. People keep wanting a New Vegas 2, although I don't know why people want a New Vegas 2, considering we're being the same city. But they could do whatever. Just like Fallout content, we need more of it. We need new content. And I think that, if you have one of the creators of Fallout, like, and who knows, it probably isn't Fallout. It is Obsidian Entertainment. They do their own thing. But if you look at how big something like an Avowed is, or the Outer Worlds is, like, what's to say that you can't have a Fallout game that big? right? You don't have to have a 100, 200, 300 hour Fallout game, right? I think that in the next couple of years, I think we are going to see multiple Fallout games in development at the same time. Not like big, brand new like Fallout games such as Fallout 5, 6, and 7, right? I think they're going to make Fallout games in different genres because like it's an active IP, right? Why do you think there was a time where we're going to get tons of Star Wars games, right? Star Wars, globally known IP, beloved IP, depending on who you talk to, but like whenever we get games in that universe, people get excited, right? People love Fallout. We just don't get them that often. And I think that if you're Microsoft, you really want to get Fallout content out there. Like, look, if you have a 9-year-old game topping the charts across Europe and the UK, right? That I bet they had really deep conversations at Bethesda and Microsoft, thinking like, what can we do? Because if I was Microsoft, I would have multiple big games in development at the same time. I'd have a
Yep.
studio dedicated to Fallout and a studio dedicated to Elder Scrolls, right? Where that's all they make, right? You have Todd Howard oversee these studios, and you have different teams such as Obsidian Entertainment where they make spin-off games, right? That would be the way I would do it, because we can't realistically go 10 years in between sequels, right? People, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm right. It's like if you go back to the 7th generation, if you played a game that you really loved, you enjoyed it, right? There was a high possibility that you were going to get multiple sequels that generation, right? That's not the case now. If you play a game now that you really like, if you do ever get a sequel, congratulations, you're probably going to have grandkids by the time that comes out, right? And that's the unfortunate reality of game development these days, Um, I know in Japan, like they are trying to make games faster, and with their level of fidelity that they're doing with games, like look at the Final Fantasy remake series. The fact they've been able to make them that quick is actually pretty impressive. I think Western gaming development specifically, they need to get something done. They need to make games faster. And I know people will say, "Oh, but the games are going to be buggier." It's like I think this need for ultra hyper realism is going to be the downfall of like Western gaming, right? Everything has to be super realistic. People want 60 frames per second, 4K ray tracing with super realistic graphics with realistic skin on characters. It's not sustainable, right? Grand Theft Auto 6 looks bloody amazing. It's not photorealistic, but it looks damn good. But do we need a game to look that good? Would it be just as good if it looked a little bit worse? Yeah. Uh, I think that graphics aren't the be all and end all. It's just that you look at games now and it's like, okay, this game's going to take 5 years to make, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, right? It's not sustainable. And if you're Microsoft and you have IP such as Fallout, like realistically, when do we get Starfield 2?
Dude,
2039?
Jesus Christmas. Good luck with that, Charlie Brown. I literally have no idea. I don't even have an
Yeah.
answer for that.
And it's like, I completely get why developers want to get games out quicker. Like, and look at Risk, right? If you make a game for like let's say 6 years, right? It has to be a smash hit the second it releases, right?
Yeah.
It's not sustainable, right? And look at the way games are made now. And this is another thing I've been complaining about for a long time. And yes, this is the segment where I'm complaining a lot about the industry. Open world, right? Can you remember before the 8th generation started, we got games all the time that were linear first-person shooters, linear third-person shooters, hub world RPGs, and then for some reason, last generation, all these studios start making open world games. Metal Gear Solid, of all franchises, went open world, filled with bloat. Right, all these different franchises went open world. When before, when we got an open world game, it felt special. It felt unique. You'd get a Fallout 3, you'd get a Red Dead Redemption, a GTA 4, that type of thing. Now, it feels like a lot of games are open world just to justify its price. So where am I going with this? I'm saying that maybe Obsidian doesn't need to make a 100-hour Fallout game. Maybe they make a 30-hour Fallout game. Maybe they get a different studio to make a 20-hour Fallout first-person shooter, right? A spin-off, you know? I think there's too much bloat in these open world games that maybe we can try something different. And I think, getting Tim Cain on board back at Obsidian, like maybe this is a step in the right direction. Maybe some spin-offs, some smaller games. But I think looking ahead, getting development time way down is going to be a big factor.
Again, we don't know where these things are going to go. I'm in the camp with Jamie. I think that Microsoft, and more specifically Xbox Game Studios, ladies and gentlemen, is massive, right? They have almost 30 studios still, and they are cranking out game after game after game. But the problem with Bethesda more specifically is, and is it really a problem, or are we just entitled gamers? I don't really have an answer for this, ladies and gentlemen, outside of the fact that Bethesda themselves are sitting on 3 renowned, incredible IPs in Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and now Starfield. And we all want content for all of them. And I think that maybe this is a non-conversation if Fallout 76 and ESO don't exist, right? I know that for a lot of people, those games are good enough, and that's your fix, so to speak. But I'm like Jamie, and I'm like a lot of people here in the chat. We are single player gamers. And this is talking about myself, I want a single player experience in the Fallout world. And I don't feel like waiting another 10 years to get that. Like, honestly, I don't know how they're going to figure out this problem. But if if season 2 is as good as season 1, and it sure enough does look that way, people are going to be jazzed for potentially a remake in the form of New Vegas. Now, to give you guys and gals, maybe you missed the story, maybe you didn't. Jez Corden of Windows Central, and of course the Xbox 2 podcast with Randall Thor 19, great friends of this channel, great friends of the gaming community, basically talked about the Fallout 3 remake. But Jez Corden happened to mention that we might be also getting a remake of sorts, the same way Oblivion was done for both Fallout and Fallout New Vegas. And I would imagine New Vegas could come next year, unless they've been working on it in secret and that somehow dropped at this year's Game Awards. I mean, listen, and anything can happen. But yes, I'll put it this way: I do think there's going to be a less rush to the finish line with Fallout if Fallout 3 remake happens, because as the game is old, right? And even though you can play it with updated graphics, and I know Jamie, you've actually posted on X you using Fallout, and it looks pretty good, but we would love an Oblivion styled upgrade. And I think that could be around the corner. But I also think that Fallout New Vegas, if they like money, they would have thought outside of the box to get that game done, especially after seeing the success of Oblivion. Oblivion broke sales records like you can't believe for a remake, and it's one of those things that could come out for every platform, not just Xbox. I mean, we're going to get it in Game Pass, sure, but it's going to go to PlayStation, maybe even go to the Switch for that matter. But look, at the end of the day, this is a great opening salvo. We have a weird one to get into, which is, I have some thoughts, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, before we get even into topic number 2, I got to tell you about Aniba.com. Now, obviously, whether you know or not, we were, and I say we, me, Mrs. Boom, had Aniba reach out to us. And Aniba is just like Loaded, which used to be CD Keys. And they are a digital retailer that sells everything from digital games to digital software and services like Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. And one of the things that we had happen this year is that Xbox Game Pass was raised to $89.99 per 3 months. Now, of course, Black Friday, there were a bunch of deals. Well, we're well past Black Friday. We're coming into the holiday season. And I'm here to tell you about Aniba. So again, I'm just going to run a 30-second ad, and then, of course, we'll get right back to it. But check it out. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm having actually an actual commercial made right now. That's something I did myself. It's not the greatest, but it's at least animated. But look, if you are someone, and of course, this is an Xbox show. Right now, they have a 3-month card for $52. And what's interesting about Aniba is they have an offer where they give you 11% cash back on that particular buy, which is, again, it's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for the United States. They do have other regions. I'm going to drop the link into the chat so you guys and gals can go check it out. Again, they have games. You please use this particular code that I dropped into it because it's linked directly to Double Barrel Gaming, and it is a partnership that we started just recently. Contracts were signed, and I could not be more honored to have been working with Aniba. You've heard me talk about them and Loaded for that matter, but we're here to talk about Aniba because we're partnered with them. And look, YouTube is a business, and we have gotten the eyes of a few businesses that we're working with, some that we've already announced, some we're working with still right now, and we'll have more announcements coming in 2026. And we are very excited at some of the future prospect partners that have reached out to Double Barrel Gaming. So, and that's all thanks to you, because if we didn't have an audience, nobody would want to work with us. But thank you so much. Again, folks, use the link that I gave you, is linked directly to Double Barrel Gaming and Aniba, and you can save money as well as get cash back on almost anything you buy using their website. So go check it out, and please let them know that Double Barrel Gaming sent you. But Jamie Moran, we have a story here. Hold on a second. I got to lower the music. Sorry about that. That is some additional gameplay of one of my favorite games of the year. Marvel's Cosmic Evasion is absolutely incredible. But Jamie, we have a story here that was posted the other day that is a weird one. So this comes the way of Bloomberg. And Bloomberg is reporting that Take-Two Interactive has hired Perfect Dark studio head Darrell Gallagher and director Brian Horton for a brand new studio within 2K. But why this is interesting and why this is a bit of a head scratcher, if you will, is these two gentlemen were in charge of Perfect Dark. And Perfect Dark was a game that was canceled. And before that game was canceled, there was a story that broke that Microsoft and 2K could not come together on a deal for the IP. Now, it didn't specifically say why that deal failed, but it does seem like because Microsoft did want to sell off the IP, but still have some sort of an attachment to it. I'm not sure that was going to work out for 2K, but what we've seen in the past is a game get canceled, a director and potentially producer of a game go to another company, and then they release a game that's very similar to it. Jamie, again, this is not the big story of the day. We still are going to get into the Jason Ronald commentary. I have the video queued and ready to go, but this one is a bit weird. I don't know. Look, I'll be honest with you. You've heard a lot of talk within the industry of the trailer that we were shown of Joanna Dark running through that city and using the spy equipment wasn't real. It wasn't a game. It was just a thrown together trailer. I don't know if that's been confirmed or it's not, but it looked like a game to me, and it's a game that I was really hoping to play. And what's interesting about this story, and again, this is a bit of a weird one, Jamie. Darrell Gallagher was paid. And again, I don't know what his salary is, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't share it on the air. It's not for me to share, but he was paid a lot of money to take on this role at the initiative. And unfortunately, the initiative was announced, if you don't remember, folks, in 2018. Like, this was announced when they bought the Playground Games. They bought the studio that did oh my God, what's some of the studios that they bought? Needless to say, it was a lot of studios that they announced in 2018, and one of the new studios that was created was the Initiative. So he has been with the Initiative since 2018 until they closed the studio, which they closed the studio just recently. And ultimately, all of that time, we only got a half-baked trailer. And now he's been hired by 2K to start a new studio there. I don't know. I mean, do you think that maybe behind the scenes that Perfect Dark was sold and nobody's just talking about it, and that's why they decided to bring these guys in to potentially finish it? Because again, 2K wanted to buy the IP from Microsoft, and that did not come to fruition. Well, what are your thoughts on this crazy story, Jamie?
I mean, typically, companies don't want to sell. Excuse me. Companies typically don't want to sell IP. And as stubborn as it may seem, it's like let's look at the Dead Space franchise, right? We are hearing that the rumor is that EA wants to sell it, right?
Yeah.
But typically, right, and this has happened in the past for countless other IP, countless other games, that let's say EA own the Dead Space IP and they sell it off to anyone else, right? And then that company makes a new Dead Space game and it sells like 20 million copies, generates over $1 billion, all that stuff, movie rights, everything, right? EA would be pretty angry, right? They would be salty. They wouldn't want to let IP go again. So, like, it's one of the reasons why you typically don't see IP sold a lot. And if you do, it's like really old IP that hasn't been touched in a long time. So, like, if you look at Perfect Dark, that game we saw, from what I saw, that was real we saw, but that was a vertical slice. Like, everything we saw was gameplay, but like that's all they made. And if you look at a studio that they've been in development of a game for what, 5 years, and then they didn't put out a game, right? And then all they made was a vertical slice. Like, can you blame a studio for being? Can you blame a company for shutting them down? Like, it sounds heartless, but like look at Fable Legends, right? Fable Legends was in development for years, right? I played it. I don't know if I can technically talk about it, but like that game was in development for a long time, right? It never came out. So that they were sinking hundreds of millions of dollars into this project that never happened, right? So you look at Perfect Dark, right? What do? Do you sell the IP? Or do you do something else with it? Or do you do what most companies do, and that is nothing, right? Honestly, do you know what I would do if I was Microsoft? Microsoft has a close relationship with IDOS Montreal. If they wanted to go the espionage first-person spy route, I would actually hire them to make it because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Embracer clearly, like Embracers keep canceling their projects. By the way, I would be shocked if IDOS Montreal isn't bought by Microsoft in the next year. Putting that out there, because they help and make the new Fable game, right? They are, in my opinion, one of the best studios, but all of their games keep getting cancelled, right? They've had like 3 Deus Ex games cancelled in the past like 4 years, which breaks my heart. But like they would be the best fit for a new Perfect Dark game in that style. And like, look, I don't care what IP it is. I don't care which studio it is. If it meant we would see another game, I would prefer that IP to be sold off in general. Like, look, we are probably seconds away from seeing Mass Effect 4 get cancelled.
Oh
Right?
God.
Right? You know how much I'm. Let's be honest. I'm obsessed with that franchise, right? But I can look at the reality of the situation and think like, it wouldn't surprise me if that game gets shut down, right? EA was bought by the Saudi government, right? It's a big expensive RPG in development, and like that game has to come out, be a huge success, no controversy, no issues, no bugs, nothing. Day one, it has to revive the Mass Effect franchise. It's got all of this weight on its back. Is that going to happen? I bloody hope so. I hope the game survives, but like, I don't have any hope for that game, right? And this is me it's coming from, right? So like, if Perfect Dark has a chance with someone else, I would prefer them to be sold off. But if it was up to me, I would get Eidos Montreal to do it. They clearly know what they're doing with those types of games, but it's just a shame, like, people get really angry when we talk about cancelled games, but the truth is, games get cancelled all the time, right? It's just most of the time we don't actually know the names of these games. We haven't seen them and all that stuff. And, I think when it comes to Perfect Dark, it's been a dormant IP for so long. We haven't had a new Perfect Dark game since the launch of the Xbox 360, right? So it's been a long time. But hey, I mean, look. By the way, I see people in chat picking fault with what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing what I'm saying is untrue. like it. All we're talking about is speculation. It is a podcast. It's a conversational podcast. Like, what are we meant to do here?
We're here to talk about it, and it's opinions, folks.
Yeah,
Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just opinions. Yes.
Yeah, it's just my take on it, right? If the Perfect Dark IP happens in general, and it has to be sold elsewhere, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I just want a new I want a new game set in the Perfect Dark universe. I don't care who makes it. At the end of the day, just I want a new game. But will the IP be sold off? I highly doubt it. Companies are stubborn. They don't want to sell IP. That's why you rarely see it happen. The only reason you see Ubisoft let go of a bunch of super old IP not long ago, it's because it's IP they never really had any intention of doing anything with. Like, there's a game called I Am Alive, right? It was meant to be this huge open world survival game on 360, and then it was cancelled, and then it was brought back, and then it was scaled back, and then it launched as I think it was a £12 Xbox arcade game, right? And then nothing happened with that franchise ever again. And then what happened? You fast forward 12 years, the IP gets sold to, I think, THQ Nordic. I have to check again, but it got sold off. And it's like, that IP was never going to come back in any way. Nobody was talking about that IP. And Perfect Dark, on the other hand, there's something that could happen with that. It has an existing fan base, albeit one that's been waiting a very long time for a new game. But if I was Microsoft, I'd just get a different studio to make the game.
I mean, it's a great point of view. Again, it's man, it's a shame. One of the biggest things that I credit Nintendo for is consistently, even if the game, look, here's a perfect example of it. So Metroid Prime 1 and 2 are just incredible classics, right? They've been released in HD versions, multitude of times. They remade 1, which was incredible on the Switch. 3 was a complete disaster. 3 was just an abomination. Kind of like how Ninja Gaiden before the remake was. Like, Ninja Gaiden 3 was terrible at from inception, and then there was another one with like zombies or something. It was terrible. Now the series is back to being as good as we know it is. The one thing I credit Nintendo for is, even when a game does have a spotty track record with sales, or a spotty track record with prior releases, they still bring it out because they know that the IP itself is important. Now, Metroid Prime Dread or Metroid Prime 4 is not going to blow. Again, I say it may not blow up the sales charts, and I don't know that. I mean, it's probably going to sell well because it's a Nintendo game. But is it going to sell as much as a Mario game or as a Zelda game? No, it's probably not. But the game still exists. And even if that game has been in development, what year? Does anybody in the chat remember what year when they showed Metroid Prime 4 logo? It was at like an E3 Treehouse event, and the internet like stopped, right? Like, it was just a still screen that says Metroid Prime 4, and the internet just stopped. And we're like, oh my God, Samus is back, right? And how many years from then? So thanks, Ray Chi. Thanks so much for that, brother. He says 2017. And it just released now, right? Like, think about that for a second. So I am saddened when I heard the game got canceled. I was very disappointed, not because oh my God, we're gonna die without Perfect Dark, but you said it earlier. For some reason the espionage genre just has gone away, right? There's no Sam Fisher, there's no Perfect Dark. I don't know, man. I still think that's a pretty cool genre, and just no one's really taken advantage of it. And this was an opportunity to kind of bring that back. And if the game would have been good and it looked really good just based on that little trailer, it could have been something special. But listen, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It didn't happen. It's disappointing, and I'm just wondering what happens next. You know what I'm saying? Like what ultimately is going to happen next? Just one second. Okay, yeah, now I'm back. There we go. So let me just bring up. So let me catch up. But we do have a super chat here from Will, the Broke Boy Insider. He drops a very generous $2 super chat and says there is a new Fallout. Hold on a sec. There is a new Fallout series dynamic background. I did not even see that. Well, thank you so much. And I'm glad we didn't steal your point. So usually that's what happens to poor Will. And Will, just so you know, the music that I used in that particular 30-second commercial, I pay for a service that I cut my own music from. And it's indie artists that put their music up there. I think it's about $200 a year is what I wind up spending on it. But it gives me access to hundreds, if not thousands of songs. And as long as I pay, I have the license for it. So I'm not going to get any YouTube hits. But that's a good call because, YouTube does that. But look, Jamie Moran, we got to get into this next story here. Now, the third story is this BBC interview with Jason Ronald. Now I do have it queued. So you know what? Let me bring up what he had to say, and let me just pause this footage and bring this up because this is pretty interesting stuff here. I didn't know he was being interviewed, and I do like Jason Ronald a lot. Like I said, I had an opportunity to kind of rub elbows with Jason multiple times. We talk in DMs from time to time. I've never gotten any like super behind the scenes information because he's can't tell me anything. But I want to bring that interview in. So let me just bring this full screen, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to get your thoughts on it because again, it's very interesting what he had to say, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So let's play this right now. Let me cue this up, folks, and we'll make sure that we're good to go. Let me just bring that full screen so you can check. We're going to hide me and Jamie just for a second so you can check out the video. This is from the 4-minute mark. The video is 6 minutes and 33 seconds, but the most interesting part of this interview is the last 2 minutes and 33 seconds, which you're going to hear now.
I'm tethering this to my phone. I'm playing this over the internet. That's pretty cool.
And you can play all sorts of games on Game Pass, not just new ones, but titles as old as the original Xbox console too.
Great games are timeless, and I think we not only feel a need, but also a responsibility to preserve the games from the past and enable them to be played in entirely new ways.
Any chance, just for child me, would be so unhappy if I didn't press you on this point, Are you going to bring more original Xbox games to Game Pass in the future?
So what I will say is I can't announce anything today, but in 2026, it's the 25th anniversary of Xbox, and we want to celebrate the great legacy and the history that we have with Xbox, as well as defining the future for where the Xbox ecosystem's going. So I can't confirm or deny what you're asking, but stay tuned. We have a lot of exciting things to share next year.
But not everyone's excited.
All right, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let me bring Jamie and me back in. Okay, let me just set everything up for us here. And I want to talk about this because, Jamie, this is, look, I think everyone in the chat here knows that 2026 is going to be a party from the first of the year to December 31st. And it's going to be a party not just because of the 25th anniversary banner that Xbox is going to be able to be touting, right? There's a lot of anniversaries happening that specific year. More importantly, you know, the two that jump off the page are, you know, Master Chief Cortana and Combat Evolved will be celebrating its 25th anniversary as a game and franchise. In the same year, you have the 20th anniversary of Gears of War, which of course will have a new title in the series, and that's Gears of War E-Day. But on top of that, you also have, of course, Playground Games releasing Forza Horizon 6, and they're going to Japan. And look, I got to be honest with you folks, and I'm going to nerd out here because this is an Xbox show. I'm an Xbot. I don't shy away from being a fan of the brand. And my God, if you just walked away and those are the only 3 games you got next year, I'm sorry to say it would be a giant W. Because you're getting the trilogy, you're getting the trinity of what you, when you look at the trinity for like DC, for instance, it's Batman, Superman, it's Wonder Woman. Well, I think that the 3 franchises that are still considered some of the best in the business is Halo, Gears, and Forza, and I'll fight anybody that tries to besmirch that. They're important franchises, and you know what's crazy? All three of those franchises are launching into Xbox Game Pass, and even more insane is they're going to be on every console, including PlayStation 5 at some point, which is even more bonkers. But that's not where 2026 starts and ends, Jamie Moran, because we also know that Modern Warfare 4 is happening. We also know, thanks to a leak from someone's LinkedIn, that NXIL's Clockwork Revolution could also be dropping next year. Hell, we may actually see that next freaking month, right? Because we have the Developer Direct happening in January, a little bit over a month after the Game Awards. And then, of course, you know, there's still State of Decay, right? We don't know what's happening. Could that release? Maybe, maybe not. Fable. Now, I know that Colt Eastwood and several others have heard 2027. I have not heard, but I also have not been actively trying to get information on the game. I think that if it comes out, great. If it has to be delayed because they want more time, awesome. But just based on what we know so far, the game was supposed to come out this year. They needed more time. Nate the Hate broke a story last week that the first half of 26 is going to levy the Playground Games Forza Horizon 6, which leaves the other 6 months of the year for the Fable team to finish the game. So they have a year literally from where we are now to finish the game. I don't know how far in development they are, but from what we've seen, it looks amazing. But just getting and trying to pick apart what, of course, Jason Ronald had to say, we know that it's going to be a celebratory year. And the question that he asked from the gentleman from BBC, he asked a really good question. I don't know if I would have asked this, but I'm glad he did because he talked about backwards compatibility. Now, we know that for the next consoles, that AI is going to play a big part in bringing all of the Xbox library, not just a few select titles, all of their games, and they will all be playable. I think we could see the return of several older franchises from, and again, one of the ones that jump off the page for me in chat, I'll ask you and I'll ask Jamie in a second. One of the franchises from the OG Xbox that I think not only could do really well in this gaming age that we're in, especially when you talk about gas games, talk about service-based games, Crimson Skies jumps off the page for me because that game had a multiplayer, it had a single-player campaign, It was awesome. Still looks freaking amazing, right? Jamie, again, what Jason Ronald had to say, even though it was vague, it did, at least for me, invoke excitement for next year. They have a lot of big plans. He couldn't reveal what those plans are. Maybe we'll get some of what they're going to be doing in 26 at the Game Awards. It's possible. And one of the things for me, and until I'm proven wrong, I still think that there's going to be a console next year. And I don't know if it's the Xbox console that's been pushed up or not, or the OEM device, who I would, again, it's a partnered device. I believe it's going to be Asus or Asus, however you want to say it. And I do think that that's next year. That could be a preview into what Magnus is going to be in 27. Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on what Jason Ronald had to say during this interview from the BBC.
If I remember correctly, wasn't he asked if more OG Xbox games are coming back?
He did.
Right. So if you go back to the 20th anniversary of Xbox, they put out, I think it was like 80 like backwards compatible games out there. And that was after we were told for like 2 years that there weren't going to be any more backwards compatible games. If you look at next year in general, when it comes to new games, you have, Fable, Forza Horizon 6, Gears of War ED, Halo Campaign Evolved. Like, incredible. At the least, like, next year is looking really good, right? Most of the games that came out this year were actually announced this year. So like if you look at next year, it could be bloody jam-packed, right? But with them doing the whole 25th anniversary thing, what if we're getting another big batch of backwards compatible titles? Like, there's a lot of titles people have been asking for. If you look at the Activision back catalog, and I know every time I mention this, by the way, people will say, but what about licenses? It's implied, right? We cover gaming. It should go without saying, things like licenses need to be solved. It goes without saying. But like, there's tons of games that could be backwards compatible that aren't. Singularity, right? Fantastic game, by the way, if anyone has never played it. It's kind of like BioShock is the best way to describe it, but with time manipulation powers. Like, why isn't that backwards compatible? I always mention the Transformers Cybertron games, right?
Oh, man,
Hasbro has mentioned multiple times they want those games to be backwards compatible and in Game Pass, right? So like, they know the value there, right? There's so many games they could bring back, and there's OG Xbox games as well. Like, I get it, like the exciting new hardware stuff. I'm still on I was originally, by the way, on the 2026 for next gen consoles, right? One of the main issues with that is that if you look at the RAM situation right now, right? If you're a hardware manufacturer making hardware at the minute, I don't know why people would want to do that, right? Like, look at the Steam box, right? We saw what Linus Tech Tips said when he went to Valve.
This thing's going to be expensive, dude. Yep.
Yeah, like, he mentioned to Valve, like, hey, this is going to be, console price. And people in the room were like, well, what do you mean by console price? And Linus said, oh, around $500. And apparently there was just silence in the room, right? Because RAM is expensive. I put it like this, right? I was looking at buying some RAM for my PC. Not some fancy stuff, because my PC is an editing rig. I just use it for video editing and 1 or 2 video games, right? So this RAM was around £48, right? I didn't buy it because there was meant to be a sale on. I went to buy it the other day, this very specific RAM for my PC. It cost £158.
Whoa, dude, that's $100+ more than what you were originally, a pound you were going to originally pay for.
Yeah. And one of my friends that bought £100 RAM about a year ago, it costs almost £400, right? So like, this RAM issue is really going to affect hardware. Like, a lot of people don't know this. Do you know there's only 3 companies on Earth that actually make the modules for RAM? And one of them is only going to make, like, I think from the second quarter of next year, they're only going to make RAM modules for companies that invest in AI, right? So that means you're going to have two companies that are making RAM modules for consumer electronics products. So like that's one of the big. Like I'm surprised that ROG Xbox Ally even exists right now because of this RAM situation. But like I'm on team 2027 now for that. And I think 2027 is fine for a next for the next generation. But like next year for video games, it's going to be big. Like think about it, right? In a year, we're going to get I know it's the Trinity, Forza, Gears, Halo, right? That's a big year, right?
Yep.
In fact, I can't remember any other time where Microsoft may have had that many big titles out in the same year. But like this year, really good year for them. Next year, looking really damn good. And look at the software side of things. The dashboard alone has came a long way over the past few years. More interactive stuff on screen. You can mess around with everything. You can like it tells you now on the dashboard like what were your previously played games. I use that thing all the time, right? I think that next year hardware is not going to be a talking topic at all. I think it's all going to be out games, right? And that's a good thing. Backwards compatible stuff, new games, all that stuff. I think it's going to be a very good year. But like hardware, I can't see hardware in the conversation at all for next year, especially with the RAM situation. And plus, look at this generation in general. This generation started off pretty slow, because we're all stuck in the house. All these studios, everyone was stuck in the house. So, like, all the games we got in 2023 and 2024, we originally should have got like a year or two beforehand. So, like, this generation's been weird. And I think it's fine for 2027 for a next-gen console. Next year, I'm excited for the games, man. Like Halo Combat Evolved, Remake, we're getting brand new, we're getting brand new missions. And I think that's super cool.
3 of them, as a matter of fact, with Sergeant Johnson, which has me very excited.
Yeah, and that's going to be just so fun to go through. Gears of War ED, right? Back to basics, linear, third-person shooter, going to have some horror elements. It's going to be gritty, dark, grimy. That's what Gears needs. And Forza Horizon, people have been wanting Forza Horizon be set in Japan for a very long time. So, like, that's my take on it. So, backwards compatible stuff and just, Microsoft pushing these first-party titles more. And remember, we've been talking about this Fallout 3 remake for the longest time. If it doesn't happen this month, which I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen, let's be honest, we know what's happening next year. Clockwork Revolution, that was announced with gameplay, right? So I'd be shocked if we don't see that next year as well. 2026 is going to be all about the games. At the end of the day, that's what we all care about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be a party time next year. It just is. Look, if you just take a step back, this is an Xbox channel. But if you want to be fair, next year as a whole, gaming is going to be incredible, right? Wolverine is coming out for PlayStation. Soros will be out for PlayStation. Obviously, they'll have MLB The Show. We don't know what else they'll add to the their list of games if they'll have anything ready. Nintendo has a Mario film coming out, which I believe that Mario Galaxy 3 would also come out either before or after, because they just released the remake or remaster of Galaxy 1 and 2. There could be a new Zelda game next year. I mean, Nintendo's going to deliver. They always do. And if you're not a Nintendo fan, listen, that's fine. I'm a Nintendo kid. I've always been a Nintendo kid. It's fine. But being that this is an Xbox channel, and by the way, shout out to everybody who threw Vanessa under the bus. She's been blocked. Well, if it happens to be, I know that a lot of people, she's in there trolling. Trolls are not wanted here. And if I didn't get her, Leave the Pop or somebody else would have got her. And if there are any clone accounts, just keep banning her. I know that FarQ said she was banned on a couple of other places. Well, now she's banned here as well. But thank you. Shout out to FarQ for, as a matter of fact, shout out to FarQ again, because he did a bunch of promos for me that he sent me in DM that were really good. So thank you so much for that. But keeping it about gaming, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Xbox gaming, I do have that. I have an article in front of me, and of course, I want to give credit where credit is due because I have added both the BBC video, which is 6 minutes and 33 seconds, to the show notes of today's live stream, as well as this article. This article that I'm going to read a little bit from is from WindowsCentral.com, one of my favorite places to get news from because they are a legit news source. It was written by Adam Hales. This was published yesterday. And he goes on to say a new BBC video showcases the Xbox Ally X handheld and includes a short interview, which you fine folks saw with Jason Ronald. Now, the gentleman that was doing the interview is BBC's Tom Gherkin, and he takes a close look himself about the Series X handheld. But of course, he finishes off the video with interviewing Jason and getting some tidbits. And again, there wasn't a lot of information there. Jason is limited to what he says, but the thing that has me very excited for next year for Xbox, whether it be hardware and games or just games like Jamie was saying, I'll say this. Maybe I'm being an entitled gamer, right? The Series X, I think, still has untapped potential. Man, I don't know so much about you. I play on my Series X every day, and new games look amazing. Xbox first-party games, they put a little extra into it because they're first-party games, and they should, because that's a first-party console. They look incredible, right? Do I think that this console could probably last another 5 years? Yeah, I do. I think it could, but Xbox is not selling them. Right, look what happened with Black Friday. Even though they got 10% of the market for Black Friday, a GameCube Connect device beat them by 4%. Now, again, that's because they didn't put anything on sale. We talked about that specifically yesterday. But getting back to why I'm excited for Xbox is because I think there is an opportunity here, Jamie, to bring hardware. And I don't think it's going to be specifically their own. I really honestly believe in my heart of hearts, folks. And again, sorry I don't have the poll up for you. I'd have to go out of here and go to YouTube to do it. I probably should have thought about it, but I honestly think that if they put the work in to get a handheld out this year, and they have a pair of them, the Ally X and the Ally they're selling well. In fact, as a matter of fact, the ROG Ally is on sale. It's $100 off in most places. So if you were on the fence, it's not $599, it's $499, and the white one is just as good as obviously the X. Obviously, it's not as powerful, but it still might be worth it to you for $500 at a dedicated Xbox device, in the handheld form and factor. But I think that if they did the work for that, then why not do the work for the potential OEM device, which we know is going to be the future of Xbox gaming? Like, that's not a surprise. It shouldn't be new to you. They've publicly talked about it. But look, at the end of the day, this has been one heck of a show. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, it's a little bit shorter today because we didn't have Umbra. Normally, when we have 3 people, it's a little bit longer. But Jamie Moran, you have a show happening later this afternoon with Logan Meyer called the All Things Xbox Podcast. Let's get your information on where people can subscribe, tune in to check out, and more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Yeah, thanks, Boom. It's always a pleasure. Before I get into me, plugging my channel, I see too many people take gaming stuff way too seriously. People popping up in chat, they trolling and stuff. It's like, look, this is an Xbox-centric channel. We're talking about Xbox, and if people don't want Xbox stuff and don't want to listen to Xbox stuff, why tune into it? I don't hate watch other YouTube channels. I don't hate watch TV or movies. Do you know what we call that in the real world? We call that wasting your own time, right? There's nothing normal about that, right? People need to enjoy what they enjoy. Like, look, people don't like my certain opinions about gaming, and that's perfectly fine. But some people want to get all personal stuff. People want to attack others. People just want to troll other people in chat and, hate watching stuff. It's like, it's just gaming, right? It's a hobby. Video games are awesome. Do you know there's people out there that they spend hours upon hours each day watching reality TV slop, right? And here we are out there saving the galaxy, going through haunted mansions and stuff. And these people just do that stuff, right? Gaming's fun. Gaming should always be fun. And I think too many people like take that stuff way too personal, way too seriously. It's like if the day people stop having fun with video games, they've lost the point, right? But that's just me. But anyway, yeah, so my YouTube channel is the Elusive Gamer. I exclusively cover Xbox. Now, unfortunately, the podcast, All Things Xbox podcast, has been moved to tomorrow because Logan can't make it today. So it'll be 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. It's going to be a fun time. I will be having another apocalyptic rant about Splinter Cell. Shocker to no one. A bunch of different stuff about that. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy, Fallout, all that stuff. And yeah, that's 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel. I also do Twitter, which is Jamie Moran UK, where it's exclusively gaming and jokes.
And as it should be. It should be about gaming, should be about jokes, should be about fun. I think that you're onto something where we've lost the point if it's all about hate-related content. That's something that we don't do here. I do want to thank once again for the chat for being here. We did have a lone super chat here from Will, the Broke Boy Insider. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a big thank you to Aniba for sponsoring today's Xbox Factor podcast. And folks, if you, again, are looking for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate codes, look no further than Aniba. I'll drop the link one more time in here, one more time right here. They do, in fact, have a 3-month card of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $52. And considering that it's $90 because of the price increase, that is pretty damn good. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. For Jamie Moran, for myself, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And of course, I want to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. To live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast.